Kia.
Kia ora tātou, kara ki tātou, tue ki runga, tue ki raro, tue ki roto, tue ki waho, tue tātou te tangata, ki te kaupapa o te hui nei, ki te kaupapa o te rangi nei, mauri ora ki a tātou katoa.
Kia ora. First of all, I'd like to welcome board members Armstrong and Dixon to the table. We found a seat for them. Just remember Zoom requirements. I've got some staff and media on Zoom, but no one else. Microphones on when you're speaking. Zoom attendees cameras off and microphones during breaks. Toilets are out on the left as usual. If we start to shake, we dive under the tables and seats if you've got a seat. And there's hearing assistance at the rear. So I've got apologies this morning from Councillor Greening, Councillor Walker and Councillor Dowler, and for Mayor King for lateness, and he will join us either on Zoom or come into the meeting. So do I have a mover for those? Councillor Ellis and seconded Councillor Mara. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Right, public forum is nil. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest this morning? None. No late items. And we've got the minutes. And if I just go over the page, it'll give me, no, it doesn't give me the date of the minutes, but it's up on the board. So let's have a look at the minutes of the meeting on Tuesday, the 28th of May. Would someone like to move that they're true and correct reading? Move Councillor McKenzie, seconded Councillor Dakey. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, we're moving on. Now, this morning we've got a presentation from the Waimea South Historical Society Incorporated, and I think we've got Roger Batt, Warwick Johnson, and a team of people. So if you'd like to come up to the table, welcome. I think Christine gave you a bit of a rundown, Councillor McKenzie, on how to use these things. Now, we've got 20 minutes. Now, that includes time for questions. So I could try and do a timer on here, but I'd get the technology wrong. So I'll go old-fashioned with my watch. And you want me to give you a hint after, what, 15? And so decide if you want to take some questions, okay? All right, so you just need to... Yep, good as gold.
Right, good morning, everybody. My name is Warwick Johnston. I'm a committee member for the Waimea South Historical Society, and we thank you very much for allowing us to give this presentation this morning. I am joined by Yo Tai, Roger Batt, Margaret Clark, and Kathleen Burnley this morning. Our purpose this morning is to firstly give you a brief overview of our society. A handout with more detail will be given out at the end of this presentation. Our second purpose this morning is to outline some suggestions that we would like the Council to take forward to enhance and strengthen heritage in our community. Firstly, our incorporated society was formed in 1981. We are a not-for-profit, voluntary, community-based, local history organisation, and we have sought to identify and strengthen heritage, be they buildings or sites, mainly in and around the greater Wakefield area. For example, at the Wakefield School, and just recently assisting with historic information for the Wakefield Toy Library and the Wakefield Post Office. We have also taken a more general interest in the wider Waimea area as time and opportunities have arisen. such as assisting with heritage information panels along Queen Street and the heritage collection at our famous Richmond Library. While we are aware of the tremendous pressure on councils these days to deal with other aspects of their responsibilities, it just seems that heritage has somehow slipped, sadly, down the list of council priorities. We have therefore taken this step of appealing to this committee to have some input into future council work plans and thus increase heritage importance within our council. Therefore, first of all, we'd like to thank the Mayor for his statement about preserving a town's character when speaking to the recent 10-year plan. We would now like to present some of our suggestions to assist the council in protecting our heritage resources as in accordance with the RMA section 6A F, in particular in and around the area of Wakefield. With the council's assistance, we can envisage this area becoming a tourist destination. It is already a cyclists and walkers destination. And with the increasing interest and history of the area, especially here modestly we say, after our own very successful historic walks, we think there is every possibility of it becoming a heritage destination as well. Right, our suggestions now in some detail. We would like the formulation of a Wakefield heritage protection policy. To give some purpose and structure to that policy, we suggest starting with the Tasman Resource Management Plan, specifically the Buildings and Structures List section, which is 16.13a. Could Wakefield be listed as a separate ward? This is because there are a significant number of historic heritage buildings and sites within the Wakefield area, and currently, let's be honest, being included within a larger electoral area, this diminishes their importance and value. This may mean the inclusion of subsets or special areas within each ward for greater clarification and/or protection. Changes may also involve consultation and discussion with us, the Wakefield Community Council, and appropriate council officers. It could also include the addition to the current list of buildings and structures that this society identified and submitted to council in 2022. To refine that general concept, we suggest the establishment, firstly, of a heritage area covering the Wakefield village and surrounding streets. The exact area and sites or places to be determined by consultation with the Wakefield Community Council, ourselves, and the wider Wakefield community. But secondly, the establishment of a heritage precinct covering the Edward Street area initially, and then possibly adding Whitby Way later. We would assist by contributing relevant historic information. It's to be noted that there are seven heritage precincts within Nelson. Both heritage area and heritage precinct have Heritage New Zealand regulatory protection status. A recent case, namely the ongoing activity at 21 Pitfield Road, is a classic example of what we're talking about. Was the building in question a pre-1900 structure that was about to be demolished? Nobody was quite sure. The current owners followed the rules, but because of a lack of heritage information on the council's part, take at their own expense demolition. The questions to be answered by this council are clearly twofold. What was missing in council's procedures and protocols to allow this situation to happen? And secondly, where was the heritage assessment as recommended in section 6A(f)? Do I have to remind you what that section actually says? The concluding sentence in that section actually says, in pertaining to a historic heritage site in the schedule, however, if an item or area is not scheduled, section 6A(f) may still apply in favour of protection. Much of the above, ladies and gentlemen, would have been resolved by designating a heritage go-to person within the existing council structure. This would involve heritage management being part of that person's job description. However, let's be frank here, a heritage advisor, of course, would be preferable. In addition, we would like to see a robust liaison structure established, which includes our society as a community representative regarding historic heritage issues, concerns, and activities. We would like to see the reinstatement of the Heritage Subcommittee because, not to put a too fine a point on it, ladies and gentlemen, this council would appear to be ignoring its statutory obligations. We would like to see, finally, some form of rates remission for property owners of heritage buildings to assist in maintenance and to encourage preservation. But once again, thank you very much for your patience and allowing us to deliver this presentation, and we're now open for questions.
Well, thank you, Warwick. So that was only 10 minutes, so that's pretty much on time. So we've got some time for questions, and I'm sure one member will have some. Councillor Mackenzie, do you have a question? I'm not even waiting for you to put your hand up.
Well, look, thank you, Warwick and others for coming along this morning. And I think that you've made some very good points. And honestly, I want to thank you for all the work that you do out there in Waimea, because, you know, I've been on one of the heritage walks, and you know, that body of knowledge, your documents, your photos, how you can talk about the history of all of those buildings. You're right. I mean, there is great potential there, I think, for tourism, and I know personally I would love nothing more than to have a historic precinct there. I did note in the council records actually that a resource consent has now been applied for in terms of the work being done on the post office. So that's super, super exciting. So I guess, you know, I'm not sure that I have a question. I think my question probably would be more for the council staff to actually think about what we can do in order to meet some of the requests that you've put there, and if there is a situation where something has been done to a historic building and it's been allowed to happen in the absence of good information, then I think that that's something that we need to think seriously about. So I would, my questions really are more for staff, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. You don't respond to it. Oh, you can take your time to think about it before you respond. I'll let you respond later. So I'll give you a few minutes. Councillor Butler's got a question.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Just wondering if you have got if any of the buildings are actually protected under the Historic Places Trust. You know, have you got any buildings that are actually allocated a category of protection nationally?
Yes, there's, I think, from memory, going through the list, there's at least 2 or 3 category 1, and I'm now talking about Edward Street, because of course you've got the church right at the top. And then there's another 3 or 4 that are category 2 in the Wakefield area. That's why we were quite concerned about what was happening at 21 Pitford, because we needed some information about whether that building was actually a 1900s building and whether it was listed anywhere. And for our preliminary research in conjunction with the owners of that building, we've come to the conclusion that because there was no heritage information available, that they were forced into the situation of demolishing it without any information or protection. And we now come to understand, I think, that that building may not well have been the original Gospel Hall.
Councillor Dakey.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation. We certainly heard your message when you presented the LTP, and with the conflict with affordability, as you mentioned, we'd love to do more and we couldn't get it through in this LTP. So again, thank you for bringing this up and keeping fighting for this issue, because once it's gone, it's gone. I guess my question for staff would be, how do we loop back and how do we close this so that we don't let this go into the void of the 1,000 other things that council is doing? How do we give information back of whatever we decide so that we're giving a loop, so we're not just letting this die out, so that it is fresh?
Thank you, Warwick, for that. I think we've got some clear steps through this. What I suggest is we'll take the presentation and come back to the next committee meeting with some responses to how we could or could not respond, if that helps. Okay, so then you can make a decision to direct our work programme going forward, because that's the key to this.
Just for, and obviously the feedback to the society as well. Yeah.
So we've had a cup of tea and a chat recently prior to this session, and it took a while. I need to understand some of this, but I think we need some direction from the governance team as to where we go on this. So we'll come back with some options at the next committee meeting.
All right, so there'll be a report coming back. Any other questions of Warwick and his team now? Councillor McKenzie.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I just want to also, Roger's got some publications there. He might hold them up as an example of the great work that the Waimea South Historic Society do. So they're producing all of this information, and Roger will just leave these here for the duration of our meeting, so that other members here might just like to have a little bit of, they have got a price tag on them, so don't feel compelled that you have to buy it, but I'll take them back home with me later at the end. But you know, it's just to show actually, they're very active in the society and producing really important information, so that it's at our fingertips.
Thanks for that. Councillor Shalcris.
Yeah, obviously, great work from you guys there. Obviously, I live in Wakefield, only 10 years, so I'm only a newbie there, but not much of a history person, but I can see the opportunities. You can't make history, and the Toy Library is a classic example. Went into that building prior to it being done up a wee bit, and was at the opening with a couple of you folk there, and it was amazing. I mean, it's it's something that's it's quite an easy sell, and I just see a real opportunity, not just for Wakefield but for Tasman in general. If you could turn it into some sort of, like say, tourist destination. We've got big things happening in Wakefield, so you just can't make history, right? And there's not a lot. They always talk about Nelson having all the history. Kind of Wakefield is kind of the little bubble in Tasman that's got it, and you just can't build that. So I think keep up the good work, and hopefully we can support all your projects moving forward. Yeah, thank you.
Right. We've got a couple of minutes left. Councillor Ellis, did you have a question? And then we'll wrap up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. It's really important that you guys are all so passionate about this and preserving it for the rest of us. Has there been any discussion in the community about, could you please give us an idea of what's happening in the community, how the rest of the community's feeling about it? Has there been discussion about how it could be funded? For example, if there was to be a precinct, perhaps we have targeted rates for things like museums. Is there a willingness within the community to look at perhaps something like that to help preserve that area and perhaps even not develop it further, but ensure that the rest of the area is in keeping with that as well? Is that have there been those kinds of discussions in the community?
To my knowledge, there's been no formal discussion, but anecdotally and amongst ourselves, as informally as we can, we always try to talk about those things. And we have been to the Wakefield Community Council meetings to bring those things up to them. I would encourage a more formal discussion between ourselves and the Wakefield Community Council, for instance, to forward those ideas and suggestions, because unless we have the whole community behind us, unless we know the whole community is behind us, then we are just a voice in the wilderness, aren't we? So this is one of the reasons why we've come here this morning. We can't do this on our own. We want you to help us. We want you to assist us. And I'm sorry, Councillor, but I do have to take just a slight objection to that. Wakefield was much more important to the Nelson settlement than Nelson. And I'm going to divert here a bit. And okay. But please take that forward. That's we really got to get onto it here. Thank you.
I'm sure all our settlements are important. And thank you, Roger, for your team and your presentation. Councillor Mackenzie will pass those around or from either side. And we're getting a copy of the presentation to be shared.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. And thank you for coming in and for all the work that you do. So we have to move on to the next item, which is simply my chair's report, which looks at the amount of work we've got going forward for this committee and for members. And if you saw in the paper a bit of a go at us about Richmond South, and I've actually put in a picture of Richmond on the rise, and it's only 3 stories, the picture I put in my report. And if you drove here this morning, you might have seen some more townhouses under construction by Kangaroa in Oxford Street. So we're certainly seeing some intensification. So any questions on my report, or someone happy to move? Councillor Mara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy to move. And just a quick question, and it can probably come up later. So plan change 80 from Waitakere West, how far down are we than that? Can that also potentially encompass some other things like Seaview Heights or other things? Or are we too far down there? You put plan change 80 in here. We're happy to move your report, Mr. Chair. And it's a question to you because it's your report.
Yeah, look, I don't think it can, Seaview Heights, but Barry, if you'd like to just come to the table. My understanding is Seaview Heights, this is my recollection from, I sat on the future development strategy with the Deputy Mayor. It didn't make the cut at that time. And plan change 84 is a discrete one in relation to Motueka certain areas. Is that correct?
Yeah, through the chair. With regards to the future development strategy, the Seaview Heights area was assessed for the 2019 FDS and now for the more current 2021. So I think for the 2021 FDS, we assessed something like 202 sites through the multi-criteria analysis, and Seaview Heights came out about 198, so right down the bottom of the list in terms of scoring. So it was, it was way off mark, so it was nowhere near in terms of being included in the FDS based on the criteria and the scoring that were done for the FDS. And in terms of Plan Change 80, yes, it is very discrete. It's a very discrete piece of Wakatu land. Yep.
Okay, so I've got a mover. Any other questions? I've got a seconder. Seconder. All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay, so we'll move on to our quarterly, and I just need to note that Councillor Walker's come on stream, and she came on stream because her meeting is starting a bit later, as I understand it. So good to see you, Councillor Walker. So quarterly, Barbara and your team, and Anna and her team actually is. All right, Jesse's new. Jess?
Jess has been doing
I haven't seen her at that meeting. You better introduce her.
Well, Jess has come back from having your first for a while now. So it's the first time Jess has been here for a while. So
yeah. Who's leading this? Is Barbara or Anna? What's your view too?
Yes, well, kia ora koutou morena, everybody. How are you? You have received our quarterly climate change update, and we would like just to bring to your attention a point within the report. There is quite a lot of information there, but one of the things that we would like to bring to your attention is that the government has now released its new climate change strategy, and the strategy pretty much sets the direction of the way the government will be delivering on climate change. And worth noting that it pretty much focuses on 5 main pillars. That's what they've been called. The first one is it looks at infrastructure to make sure that our infrastructure is going to be resilient and that our communities are well prepared. The second point, the second pillar, it's going to be looking at establishing and strengthening credible markets to support the climate transition that we need to do. And by credible market, that's one of them is going to be the strengthening and enhancement of the emission trading scheme that we have. The third point is going to be, the third pillar is going to be focusing on renewable energy, clean energy, to ensure that it's affordable for our community, for our nation, and it's abundant as well. And it's gonna, on the fourth pillar, is going to focus on ensuring that we're going to develop world-leading type of climate innovation, type of technologies and initiatives, so to boost our economy. And so very much in line how the government is approaching its whole portfolio, looking strongly on the economy. And the fifth pillar is coming up with nature-based solutions to address climate change. And so that the strategy that has been released a few weeks back, we are really looking forward now to receive more detail on this strategy, so that we will be able to better align our work going forward. So we are happy for you to take the report as read. But before we do this, I would like to introduce Jessie Cross, that she just came back from maternity leave. Jessie, she's our Partnership and Environmental Education Officer. And I would like, and Jessie, she's going to provide an overview of an update of the Climate Change Learning Program. And this is work that Jessie and her colleagues have been doing for several months now, for quite a while. It's a comprehensive program that was developed in Christchurch to support and empower youth, young people, to engage with Christchurch City Council, with the council. And in order for young people to be able to have their voice heard around any kind of climate change planning processes, strategies, and plans. They've been instrumental in informing the long-term plan of Christchurch City Council, and they empower themselves to organize informal groups and bring their voice all the way up to international level. So I will let you please provide that overview on this program. Thank you, Jessie.
Kia ora koutou. Thanks for having us here today, and thank you, Barbara, for the introduction. So as Barbara mentioned, that climate change learning program, it was developed in Christchurch as a collaboration between the Christchurch City Council, Ministry for Education, and also an expert educator called Sian Carvel, and it was piloted back in 2018. The idea behind that program was that the council wanted to get specific youth input on their coastal hazards framework, being the reason behind that being that young people will be the ones to bear the brunt of a lot of the natural hazards that we're expecting to come down the line in the future. And to be able to engage meaningfully with council, we do need to treat that process really different with young people than with adults, because they are starting from a point of often no prior knowledge of climate change whatsoever. So we need to take them through that process of learning before we can expect to meaningfully engage with them on these sorts of really important topics. So the program has got two key components. The first component is an 8-week in-classroom learning program, and then that's followed by student-led climate action projects. And all of the resources that are part of that 8-week learning program have been provided and made freely available as a result of what was done in Christchurch. So there's been no cost to actually access all of that really rich, wonderful resource. There've been a lot of positive outcomes from the program in Christchurch, including a youth group that call themselves the Next Generation Conversation. And they have been, for the last 3 years, providing amazingly informed, mature, robust submissions on plans and policies relating to climate change, both at the local and the national level. So here in Tasman, we've got work happening on our natural hazards plan change, and staff are currently scoping what the community engagement process for that will look like this financial year. And there's focus on natural hazards awareness and seeking feedback on issues and options as first steps. And there's also a budget to commence community adaptation planning processes, and that work is being scoped currently. You'll know that council has a statutory obligation under the Local Government Act to consult with people that may be affected by decisions in a manner that is appropriate to the preferences and needs of those persons. And with young people, that we really need to keep that in mind, that we can't just run a workshop or a regular consultation meeting with them as a one-off and expect to get that meaningful feedback from them. Recent analysis of the age of submitters from the LTP compared to the 2023 census data for Tasman showed that only 5% of submitters were under the age of 30. And although that age group actually makes up 17% of Tasman's population, so that's a pretty major underrepresentation in that young age group. And as I mentioned, because young people will be the ones bearing the brunt of these climate change impacts in future, it's really important that we do what we can to shift those statistics and get more people really engaging with our processes. So as a result of our last term, term 2, of teaching this climate change learning program in 4 classes across Tasman, we've already got a group of 18 students who came here after school a couple of weeks ago and met with us to basically make some plans about what they want to do with this knowledge that they've got now. So that's pretty impressive. 18 students, about 6 parents carpooled to bring them all here from Wakefield, Mahana, and Lower Moutere schools, and we were absolutely chuffed to get that kind of level of engagement from young people. It was really awesome. And they are, one of the things that they said they really want to do is have their voice heard. And they also want to do some gardening and learn how to grow things, and then have a potluck dinner with what they've grown. So that they're really getting what the point of this is. So that's really exciting for us to see. So it's pretty clear to us that doing this program will actually have really direct benefits on council by helping us get a stronger youth voice in our consultation processes, which will lead to more robust and balanced decision making and help us meet those RMA consultation requirements. There's obviously also really significant benefits to the students who are participating in this program. For many of them, it's their first access to comprehensive climate change education. Because the program primarily works with year 7 and 8 students, and that's been quite deliberately chosen because the curriculum at that age is relatively flexible, and it's easier to bring in these new sort of concepts and tie it in with what they're already learning. And by learning about it in more detail at that age, they really get to understand their place in the bigger picture and where they fit in the world, and the positive actions that they can take to reduce their impact on the planet. And they become ambassadors for climate change education as well by having those conversations with their friends and family. Research has shown that taking action is one of the most effective ways to reduce climate anxiety. And I'm sure if any of you have talked to young people about climate change, you will be aware that there is a lot of climate anxiety out there, a lot of pessimism about the future. So by getting in at this year 7 and 8 age, we really hope to be able to show them the bigger picture, show them that there is hope, there is things that they can do, and their future can be really positive. And yeah, really channel that positive energy into then supporting them with their own action projects that they identify. One of which we hope will be really providing their voice in council's processes. And yeah, the feedback that we've had so far from both students and teachers has been overwhelmingly positive, and there's a lot of desire for us to continue this program and be able to offer it to more schools. So at the moment, we're committed to delivering it to year 7 and 8 students at Motueka South and Upper Mutuli schools this term. So we've got another 4 classes across those 2 schools this term. We're also committed to supporting students who have already completed the program with their climate action projects. So as I mentioned, community gardening, litter cleanups, and art projects that's looking like it will be a collaboration with the Motueka Arts Council, which is really exciting, and the community engagement process around the natural hazards plan change coming up. There's a lot of interest from more schools to participate next year, so we plan to continue delivering it next year and beyond as well. So I guess in summary, this work really provides that key foundation on complex topics like natural hazards and climate change, and helps provide our youth with the understanding and tools that they need to be able to really input on our council processes and plans that will ultimately have a massive impact on them in the future. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, more than happy to answer them.
Right, I've got 2 councillors with questions at this stage. Councillor Maher is first up. And you can cover the whole of the report.
I've got about 3 questions here. So let's start with this one, because you probably just answered the passion part of this one, which was awesome. So thank you for that. One of the questions I had is fully funded out of the environmental education budget. What have we stopped doing? What aren't we funding out of that anymore that we're funding this program for now?
So we reshuffled a little bit of our spending from the last financial year. Previously, we had been funding Tasman Bay Guardians to deliver the Whitebait Connections program to a similar amount of money each year. And because they were fortunate to receive a lot of funding from, I think it was the Ministry for Environment over 3 years. So they did not need as much funding from us for this financial year. So that's how we've been able to kind of reshuffle it into this program for now.
Okay, because the costs, I'm confused. So there's initial 10,000 and 3,500 per classroom. So have you got the budget to do all of that, or just the ones you've committed to so far?
We've got the budget to do everything that we've committed to. So the 10,000 originally for last term was last financial year.
Yes.
So that was using what was unspent from that budget. And then looking forward, we have that enough to do those 4 classes this term. And then we aim to do another 4 classes in the first half of next year.
Okay, thank you. Shall I go back to the other questions? Okay, thank you. So let me bookmark, and it's going up. It is It's probably for Barbara. And that is 3.19. And I know that this report just encaptures everything. Is it a climate adaptation plan or is it a Motueka master plan that we're doing? So from a council perspective, the council Walker might still be there. Yesterday, we again talked about when Motueka master plan. So are they the same thing? Are they different? Or are they either or?
Let's invite Diana, because we're going to be
Right.
working around adaptation with Diana going forward. And so that Diana.
So the key part is, are we talking a whole Motueka master plan or just a climate adaptation plan? Or is it the same?
Morena, we haven't landed on what the name of it, but it's all encompassing. So it will look at that longer term issue, and particularly in relation to sea level rise, as well as general kind of planning infrastructure. It's the whole gambit.
Thank you. And that, so that's later, that's fine. And then 3.23, Barbara, what would a wood encouragement policy be? Is that just a promo encouragement? Is it binding? What would a wood encouragement policy? I didn't quite, yeah. Thanks.
That's a good question. Because
Microphone.
no worries, yeah, really good question, actually. And if I just, so there is only one policy, wood first policy in New Zealand, which was developed a number of years ago by Rotorua City Council, district, yeah, regional, whatever it's called, yeah, sorry. And what that does is that, and it was not, and the way that it came out is that I would like to remind this group here that was one of the suggestions that came at one of the first meetings from Councillor Butler for us to look into a wood first policy. What that policy does is that it would encourage any kind of, every time that we need to do some buildings internally, it would encourage for us to look at sustainable type of materials like wood. And so that either we are refurbishing something or we're building something brand new, that policy would just invite, it would just encourage our building consideration to utilize wood as the first source of product when possible, clearly, when we need to either build new buildings or refurbish them. The other thing that it actually does and it's been adopted, this kind of wood encouragement policies that have been adopted around the world, have been actually allowing municipalities, local governments to influence the building sector to utilize those kind of materials more and more. Now, in a province, in a region as rich as ours, in terms of wood, that not only it's a sustainable type of decision, which it would actually bring us to work around the kind of towards a sustainable future. It will allow us to lower emission, but it will also encourage the building sector to look, especially if they're going to be rebuilding a lot of tiny homes, that kind of material could be used. Yeah.
So would that encouragement just being reduction of fees in terms of concealing? I'm just wondering what the encouragement is.
It's encouragement. It means that it's voluntary. For us, it will be yes, let's look at it, and it's voluntary when possible. That's why it cannot be really a mandated type of policy. Yeah. So it's just if we can, and if the building sector can, we're setting an example. How about everybody else to follow? That's if that answers your question.
A very good example is the airport building with the fancy wood that was used in that rather than steel and concrete. Now we'll just move to Celia, Councillor Butler, sorry. For next.
I've just got a question, thanks Barbara, about the New Zealand second emissions reduction plan and the consultation, and staff are preparing a draft submission. And I'm just wanted to get clarified that because public transport is mentioned in there as one of the 7 key policies, whereas in actual fact, the actual funds that are available for our public transport system have been reduced. So I'd just like to have confidence that we're going to have an emphasis on that in our submission.
Yes.
Right.
Wayne,
Through the chair, the staff have been working on the draft submission, and actually, that was one of the points I was going to do in my update report. Heads up, we're hoping to get that to you either later today or early tomorrow morning for your feedback, so we can get it submitted next week. Public transport is one of the things that we're focused on. I think it's the first bullet point under transport for the draft submission we've got so far. We're emphasising and trying to emphasise our success. 100% increase in patronage. We're a high growth council. You know, we can do more with this. So absolutely.
I've just got a question in terms of the Ministry of Education for the climate change. Are they putting in a reasonable amount of funding as well, rather than just ratepayers? Because it's an education role, and I'd like to ensure that. And I thought Waimea Intermediate would be a real target area, because there's over 600 kids there who are cycling and walking a lot more than they used to, even if they do cycle the wrong way on the cycleways on occasions. Because I have talked to their principal about it the last week.
Thanks for the question. Yes, so the original development of that program between Christchurch City Council with input from the ministry that generated the resources that we're now using, which are freely available. The ministry is not currently funding this program anywhere in the country. They are not doing any comprehensive climate education at the moment. They are funding a program in some main centres. It's a pilot where they are funding one staff member a few $1,000s each year to take on the role of like a sustainability lead within the school, but that doesn't really translate into a comprehensive education program. So that is why we have stepped into this gap, because there is a massive gap at the moment, and it does link in really clearly with council's priorities and work programs as well.
John?
Yeah, and I just want to just reinforce what Jess was saying earlier around, you know, the struggle of engaging with young people. You know, if we can get 5 or 6 young people really engaged through this process, then surely that's a benefit in the bigger picture. And it's pretty small. How much is it? 10K?
Yeah, so the initial pilot for those 4 classes was 10,000, and going forward it's 3,500 per class.
We would spend a lot of money on consultation, if you think, and if you look at that demographics is really important to me when we're looking at that profile of submitters on the long-term plan. It's, you know, we've really got to target the younger people. And if this is one way we do it, then there's got to be a benefit.
I've got a mover, Councillor Butler, but I've got a question from Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Chair. Apologies, because this will be my question and then I have to leave to go to my next meeting. Just a couple of things. The first question is, the project that Jesse's just been speaking about, is that the same one that's been tabled at the Operations Committee under Lani's Yulia's report? And my second question is, the schools that you're currently engaging with, are they enrolled and working with us alongside Enviro for Schools projects?
Through the chair. Thank you, Councillor Walker, for the question. Yes, it's the same program, and we just wanted to take the opportunity to elaborate on it a bit more. And in terms of the schools that are involved, it's a bit of a mixture. So we ran a professional learning day that was open to all Tasman intermediate students in November last year. And from that, we got our first 3 schools that were participating in the program. And then from there, we've just taken it as any schools that are interested are able to approach us. We share that information through our regular update newsletters, EcoBuzz. So yeah, we have a mixture at the moment of non-Enviro schools and Enviro schools, which is, from our perspective, really awesome that we're engaging primarily with rural schools that we haven't had a lot of engagement with before. So this is a really positive outcome.
So if I may, through the Chair, one last question. Does this project take money away from the Enviro Schools project, or do they have completely different funded avenues that we operate within?
Yeah, through the chair. And kind of the opposite. It actually really enhances what we're doing through Enviro Schools, because it brings more schools into our overall environmental education outreach and programs. None of the funding has been taken away from Enviro Schools. That's all still happening. And what actually is happening as a result of this, at the moment, we've got 3 schools, classes from Motueka South who are really engaged, loving this program. And once the program teaching component finishes, Rick, our EnviroSchools facilitator, will be able to step in and support those students with their action projects. So the two go really well together.
And does Mott South contribute to this at all?
Through the chair, no, none of the schools are paying anything at the moment. But they are contributing a lot through the teachers, giving their time to learn the program, and with the intention of those teachers being able to teach aspects of it in future years, so that it becomes a bit more sustainable in the long term.
Okay, thank you for that. So I've got a mover and I don't see any other questions. Have I got a seconder to receive the report? Councillor Mara, so it's moved. Councillor Butler, seconded Councillor Mara. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, Anna, Barbara, and Jess, and Kat, and Diane. So we have a big team up there. Right, we're going to move on to the Strategy, Policy and Environmental Policy Activity Report, and we've got a team comes up. So Wayne and Barry, others. Are you doing Alan here today? Okay, so that starts on page 34. So who's going to lead off? Wayne is going to lead off.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things. You'll note there's a lot of finished flags in our project update report, which is really good. Quite a lot of that is associated with the long-term plan and the big hump in our work program triennially. And it also means you'll notice that, you know, some of the things that were kind of parked, we ran into resourcing issues, have kind of been restarted. One of the other big things is that the next time you see this report, will probably be all that stuff with the flags we cleaned out, and we'll be trying to populate it with the new programs that we're starting, largely following the long-term plan completion process. And so there'll be some new stuff to keep your eye on for the next time. Ellen is away and Briley's acting, so she'll help with any questions on the community policy work program. We've got some team behind us to support as well. Possibly the only other thing I'd mention is that on the 19th of September, we'll workshop the Mapua Master Plan with you. And it's not yet in your diaries, but we're hoping to take you out on a site visit on the 17th, I think, to talk about some of the issues, so that when you come down on the Thursday and have a chat about it, it's very real. We went on a site visit a couple of weeks ago, and there is no substitute for being there and eyeballing some of the land and talking about some of the concepts in the site. So just please be with us. It'll be in your diary shortly. And ahead of that meeting, you'll also get, not only there'll be a workshop, it'll be seeking direction from you, but there'll also be a draft master plan to get some feedback from you as well. So that's an example of one of those projects that went kind of slow for a while we worked through the long-term plan, is kicking off again. Happy to take the rest of the report as read and take questions. Thank you.
I think the site visit is an excellent idea. Having done hearings and plan changes, the site visit really makes a big difference. So I'd encourage all councillors to go to that. Councillor Dakey is first. Question.
Yeah, question. Thank you. Around Plan Change 81, a general question. We heard this morning from the Wakefield Historic Society. With the Plan Change 81, it's an urban growth plan change. What ability do we have at this stage to chuck odds and ends in there, like a precinct change, or is that in the mix? Because we've got a few things in that Plan Change 81 that are fringe or minor that have been put in there. So I wonder, is there any scope for having a look at Wakefield's issues?
Through the chair, it's not a small piece of work to do that. As you see in the report, we've got a significant work program already. The scope of Plan Change 81 is not insignificant at the moment. To add additional things to it would slow things down. It would blow the budget out. Something else would have to give. So that'd be a decision for the council to make. And I think John report indicated earlier, we'll bring back a paper to the next committee regarding Wakefield's request, so you can consider that.
Yep, we'll get a report at the next meeting because there is a real process to go through with plan changes that's already put in place. So to stop partway through makes it very difficult. Any other questions of Councillor Mara?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's plan change 80 again with Wiggle West. So, in terms of the change in the lot sizes and stuff, is there also some criteria in terms of freehold, leasehold lots? Is that included in plan change 80 or is it not?
No, that's not something that council can control under the Resource Management Act. No.
Okay, thanks. I've got some others, but they're further down, so I'll just wait.
Wait, or look, the report's not that long. Dwayne, I'm happy that we go through do it all at once.
Yeah, I'm very much want to run through my stuff. I think goes up to page 47 for clarification.
Yeah. But the two are interchangeable, really, if you think about it. And I did talk a fair bit about plan changes in mine, and I knew Barry was going to talk about it because I didn't talk about outstanding natural landscapes or other things, which is more work that we've got coming. And we've done a lot of work on over the last 10 years, and we're about to get near the end of it. So questions right through, Brent. If you've got some more now.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. So the next one is page 51, and it is, what the heck is it? Oh, the adaptation planning for Motueka. So I know we've agreed to start the adaptation planning for Motueka. We're going to do that. And I guess just the connotations that Motueka is located in a very low area of floods and we have had some floods in our history, but we're not the only part of this region that floods. And so I'm just really concerned of the message it sends and the potential implications. And for anybody that might live east side of Motueka, can they get insurance after we've done some of this work? So doesn't seem to be a consequence if we get the science slightly wrong. So that's the balance. How do we balance based on the information that we've got and that's accepted to use compared to if in 50 to 100 years we got it slightly wrong, the impact of these decisions are significant. So how do we treat what we find out? How do we challenge what we find out? And how does the community come along on that journey?
Honestly, that's the reason for bringing the community along on the journey. And I can rest assured that the insurance companies are probably well ahead of the council, well ahead of everyone else in terms of this. They have all the information. They have the up-to-date information on climate projections, sea level rise, flood risks. So I don't think anything we will do would contribute to someone not getting insurance. I think just given the way that the insurance companies operate. Yeah.
And it'll be part of the plan change process that the science and submissions will test what we're doing.
I think, Mr. Chair, the tail part of Barry's answer is critical through this, that the insurance companies are already doing this, and this is, in essence, a catch-up in terms of limbs and more publicly available. So I hadn't thought about that. So that's probably a key part.
Councillor Butler?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, just to, there's a section there on aquaculture, and it's 4.43, page 52. And I'm just wondering, it says as part of the stage 2 aquaculture review. I didn't actually know anything about stage 1. Is there a stage 1, and is it accessible, or what? When was
through the chair, yes, it is. We can provide you with those reports. That was last year. The stage 1 report was done. There was a brief update at the time, but certainly we can provide that to you again if you like. Yeah.
Councillor Kilmore.
Thank you. Through the chair, page 40, discounted rates from Motueka to Takaka bus. It's a project on track. So we're looking at subsidising residents on the Golden Bay coach lines. I wasn't aware of any subsidies and anything like that. Was it before my time, or is something that I've missed, or can you give me a bit of a heads up on it?
Yeah, through the chair. Council agreed to trial a subsidy earlier in the year, and it's been quite successful. So I think we're putting it in place permanently. It's only for people who are residents. So it's not a general subsidy for anybody who jumps on the Golden Bay coach lines. I think James worked pretty closely with the Mott and Golden Bay councillors on it. Hopefully you're aware. I can't remember the detail, but it's something like a $15 subsidy or something like that, and they get dropped at Motueka. And I think the drop-off time allows them to catch a connecting service through the Mott service through to Nelson. It's a fairly modest cost, I think, in the order of $5,000 to $10,000 a year.
So we've had the trial and now we're going to make it permanent. Is that correct?
Correct. There's budget in the next 3 years for it.
Thank you.
Right. No other questions? Other than that, I had one on the transport on the buses going, and I've seen some comment in the last day or two about possibly making a Friday free for young people. Got any comments on that?
Because I was on leave.
We've had
through the chair.
I do find it disappointing that we've had a significant drop off because it is reasonably cheap still for young people.
Yeah, through the chair. Sorry, I was absent at the RTC meeting last week where I think it was suggested by one of the councillors there. And I believe the response given from staff was there's a review going on. We'll take on board comments like that, and there'll be a conversation with the RTC and they'll make recommendations to the full council. Essentially, the government withdrew the half price fares for children and students. I can't remember whether it was March or April, but earlier this year. And that's effectively a consequence of that. We are still, one thing to be in mind of, we are still up in terms of net patronage for those services, well above what we were previously. So still consider a really qualified slightly, but very good success.
For those of us that have got a gold card, it is very inexpensive to travel on the bus. In fact, it's ridiculously inexpensive, to be honest. I'm sorry about that. If there's no more questions, sorry, there's nothing controversial at the moment, but there is a lot of workshops going ahead, and I might add that Barry's team has a really tight and ambitious program. So it's very difficult to make changes to that, and a huge amount of work has gone in already in relation to that. And we've just got one plan change that we're going to deal with in confidential, but you can't just change things midstream. So we need to remember that.
I just want to focus today also, the other side of the table has got a significant, and there's a lot of tidying up we needed to do, bylaws and things like this. So if you can just give us a bit of space to just get this tidy up, then we can start doing some new stuff. So that's what we want to reinforce.
All right, so have I got a mover and a seconder? I've got Councillor Butler prepared to move, Councillor Ellis prepared to second. All those, we'll put the motion, all those in favour of receiving the report, please say aye. Against? Carried. Emily's new in front of this committee. I don't think I've seen her before.
New, but almost 3 months.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's new.
So I'll just introduce Emily through the chair.
Yeah.
So Emily's joined the strategic policy team as the graduate community policy advisor. So she's recently completed a Bachelor of Arts in Development Studies and Sociology. She grew up and went to school in Motueka, so it's great to welcome her back to the region and to our team. I'll let her present the report.
Always great to see young graduates returning to the district that they left. Because I've got 3 at home, well, 3 kids that have returned as well. But yeah.
That helps. I'm at home, fully at home.
I know, mine aren't at home anymore.
We love
They keep coming back, but then they go.
It's great to have the ability to. So kia ora koutou. I'll take the report as read, but I just wanted to highlight a few key takeaways from it. So firstly, our survey results are generally the same as last year. Overall satisfaction in council is similar, and when compared to a sample of comparative councils, is above the average. Resident satisfaction with recreational facilities, libraries, 3 waters and curbside recycling were all relatively high and above 85%. And this year there was a notable decrease in satisfaction with the aquatic centre and cycle lanes, but both have still met their performance targets. And lastly, satisfaction with roads was 45%, which is the same as last year and still performing below target. But when comparing with comparative councils, it was pretty on par with everyone else. And the new LDP budget is set to acknowledge this for road maintenance. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Got a couple, I think. Councillor Hill, did you? No, I got that wrong. Councillor Mackenzie. No, I wasn't looking, but it's my wing co-pilot here. But anyway, Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you very much through the chair. You know, I like to focus on the positives and I mean, honestly, I want to congratulate the council staff and managers with respect to two aspects of this report. Firstly, the satisfaction rates with our three waters. I mean, if you actually look at how they've trended over time, with all of the three of them, there is such a significant lift in satisfaction. And I just, you know, we hear some councils say that, you know, well, you know, we are really on top of our three waters, but actually it looks to me as though we are as well. And so I just think that is such a good news story. And then the other one, if you actually, you know, drill down into the benchmarking data, well, wouldn't some of those other councils like to be Tasman District Council? Because seriously, I mean, we are right up there if you actually look at that data as a whole. So, you know, I mean, clearly there are some things for us to work on with respect to roads, as you've mentioned. We've addressed that. You know, the aquatic centre, I don't know if 9 people say it's dirty. Does that actually mean it's dirty? I don't know. But I want to congratulate the council. Thank you.
Don't think there was a question in there, but that's fine. Councillor Murray.
I might see if I can find a question, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure. So the other part of the good news story is also the learnings and the snippets that we can do better in. So if we concentrate on that for a second, so I get the ASB Aquatic Centre may have dropped to 85, but in terms of the benchmark, what we expect for them is pretty blooming high. When we compare that to the experience that people have when they experience us, so dropped slightly from 73 to 71%. But I'm interested in, and Emily, you might be able to answer this question, John might be, but there's a comment in there somewhere about a number of people who, when they sought to get information from council officers, didn't rate that well. And then we hear in full council reports about the abundance of Waimea requests. There seems to be a pattern. So if I just think of 2 or 3 people that bombard me with Waimea requests and requests for council that aren't necessarily getting information, but there seems to be another lens through this survey that other people are saying the same thing. So what are we doing to address information when people ask for it to better that metric that's currently I've lost?
I think I might let Emily just have a crack at this because I think there might be two. Well, just give you because I think there might be 2 different questions. That's all. So the focus of that question in the resident survey is around environmental information, I thought.
No, so I believe he's talking about the measure that wasn't met, which was satisfaction with services received when contacting council officers.
Yes, 7 point something. I just lost it.
Yeah, 7.7.
Yes.
Well, let me just read it really quickly. Basically, of the people that were dissatisfied, they were asked why they were dissatisfied. A lot of them said that it was lack of communication and lack of follow-up. So though this is a customer service area, I'm thinking that it's more to do with the long-term communication they receive from council officers. And it might be more of a harmonization, making sure that if it's just a call up about something, it's being seen to, you know, it's not about our officers, it's widespread. And I think, obviously I came into the survey 3 months in, so I didn't set the questions. What I would like to do next year to just get a little bit more insight would be to further that question, to ask whether it's from their one-on-one situation or if it's more of an ongoing communication issue.
So thanks, Emily. So we are, as you'll be aware, we're doing this digital piece around So part of that is a lot of work around, you know, how we close the loop with people. You know, there's pockets of good, great, and there's pockets of not so great. So we know we take a lot of these resident survey feedback plus other data and how do we improve the service. So definitely on the radar.
Yeah, thank you. And that CRM makes sense. It's just when you get lots of different bits of the puzzle, it sort of says the same sort of messages. And the only other thing is, it's a little bit ironic we feel less safer on cycles after the debacle we've been through in the last year. Does that mean there's more people cycling perhaps?
Through the chair, I would say that when it comes to safety and cycling, yeah, it is quite a lot lower than everyone else. I'd say that the cycle lanes that we've just been implementing, people are getting comfortable with them, not just cyclists, but motorists as well. And I also think it's a bit of an etiquette thing that Tasman's learning. If you compare cyclists and the way that cyclists are treated in Wellington, for instance, you know, there's a lot more knowledge and respect for them. I would say as well that the question asks it to everyone. So notably 23% of respondents stated that they don't know to the question, which completely skews the answer. Yeah.
Oh, I know. I'm going to give it up now. Beat that.
Okay, it's an interesting thing, and when you see how many cyclists we see and traffic, if you go on Salisbury Road, 3 o'clock's the worst time because there's 4,000 students in that area leaving that zone, and a lot of them are walking, a lot of them are cycling, some are on buses, some are driving cars. But that's just that at that one time at 3 o'clock, just before that, 4,000 students. When you add in all of 2 primary schools, plus an intermediate, 2 colleges, and there's a kindergarten, childcare centre as well in Salisbury Road. Champions Road, it feeds down to that, and in Salisbury Road, it just makes it huge. I've got Councillor Kinwat and then Councillor Hill.
Thank you, through the chair. Not very good reading if you're wanting to be a cyclist in that area, is it? It's very, very disappointing that we've spent all this effort, Streets for People, putting cycle lanes in all over the place, and immediately afterwards we get a great reduction in the people feeling safe in what we're doing. I understand that there's new work and new layouts and you got to educate the people how to use the vehicles on these roads, but from a bang for dollar, but a buck for, we're not getting the return that we would hope. I would have thought on getting our people safer on the roads, and I wouldn't be very happy with this decline in people feeling safe. And I would like to see somewhere along the line that I get a reassurance that it was only just a new layout, and that it's not just because we've been doing things, changing the layouts, taking the cushions away, as you put cushion pillows on Winsley Road. I'm very unhappy to see this, and I'd like to see maybe something that is done in a follow-up for this review, so we go out to more people specifically about how we make cycling and our roads safer, not just a report like
No, that's a question so far.
Well, no, I'm asking this, is that this is far from happy, and I would like to see someone say to me, this is the information that we've got to show that this is only a short-term problem, that in other areas like Christchurch, who's had a lot of problems with cycling strategies, that there is a dip in safety of the cyclists and the road users, and then it comes back up again. My question is there anything to say that this is only just a short dip in our cycling safety and road safety street layouts, or is this just it was to be expected?
John's going to respond.
Well, I think we might do a tag team on this, but really quickly, Look, I think context is everything, right? I don't know how we benchmark against other. I don't know if we can see that, but this is a whole culture change, and what you've seen. If you're referring to the changes we've done through Streets of People and the like, there's some big culture change stuff in there. I don't know if that's flowing through necessarily. I'm not sure we can give you any assurance that we can do anything about it, because ultimately it's in people's minds and behaviours on the roads. But I don't think we can offer any assurance. Dwayne, have you got any sort of further?
I think the council's identified its new layout and there's new issues, and there was some negativity associated with it, which may have coloured some results. I guess we're probably not the right people to give you some of those assurances. We don't necessarily monitor it, but I know that the transportation team are in regular contact with road users. They get actual information on safety as opposed to perceptions of safety. So we'll know whether they're in fact actually safer or not. And I would hope that if there is any blip effect, we'll start seeing it in subsequent survey results. I think Briley just wants to mention something about Richmond.
Yeah, so the survey results can be analysed by different wards, and they show that Richmond residents feel safer when cycling that compared with other parts of the district. So it does seem to reflect some of the investment that's been done in Richmond, whereas Golden Bay residents are more likely to feel less safe when cycling.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, Councillor Hill, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah. I mean, it's a strange thing, isn't it? You can be some people can be anti-cyclists. It's a bit like you're either for the shorebirds or the dogs. Which is it? We get so polarised about things. It's true. It's strange, isn't it? It's one of the strangest things I come across here, I think, is how I know we live in a polar world, up and down, black and white, left and right. And we, tend to go polar, but it's a bit silly, isn't it, really? You can have a dog and enjoy the birds, I suspect, and probably drive a car and, not be too worried about what people are doing on cycleways. Is this an election? No.
No.
I think in terms of following on from Mike, really. So I think, it's a little snapshot, and who you get is who you get answering, and their views are what's there. But I think if we really want to have a balanced understanding of how the cycleways are going for cyclists, that would be a specific piece of work, I think. In terms of the business about getting, people's satisfaction level with what they're hearing back from council staff or officers, or I do notice that when I put in service requests, sometimes on behalf of others or oftentimes on behalf of others, you never really know unless you see the thing fixed. Nothing really comes back to say, oh, yep, we've done that. And I think people say that to me. I say, I'll go and chat with Jess and them, and they'll put a service request in, and they'll say, well, I did that a couple of months ago and I haven't heard anything. And they obviously notice if the thing's been fixed, if it's what they've submitted about. So I think there is something there, and I've brought this up in past years too, and I don't know whether there's an easy way for that message just to go back to, it's just a quick email, isn't it, or a text to say, it's on the list, will be done, it's not ours, NZTA, whatever we can say.
Well, John's covered that'll be fed back, and one of the things, the processes they're looking at changing. We'll go to Deputy Mayor Bryant.
To the survey, just a couple of comments. Let's see that we called a large number of landline phones and mobiles, and then we talk about we've surveyed 400 people. So does that mean that all those other people were excluded for one reason or another, didn't want to participate in surveys? Because one of the issues that we find a landline and even now mobile, you get a huge number of calls for people wanting, particularly for, I guess it could be because we're farmers and names listed on farming. Get a huge number of calls to do surveys, and I just say, no, I don't do surveys now, I'm over it. And I just wonder how much of that goes on. Have we ever given any thought to doing it other ways, like when people exit the building or via email? Like a customer service team, they have a really good reputation. and well deserved. And perhaps when people are leaving the building, we could actually ask people, well, how did you find the experience?
I wonder if we're going to help. So we've got a lot of work going on that customer space because we know we need to up the game. This is the digital investment we're talking about. We're going to fix some of these things, and it will be much more instantaneous, that feedback, because I know that Kim Drummond does a satisfaction survey around resource consents and building consents, but it could be 12 months down the line, so you've sort of forgotten about it. So we want to do a lot more sort of quick survey work, so we do get that response. But it's going to take a bit of time. We've got really clunky old systems, and we can't put more and more on the team. We need to digitise it.
And I think that's the thing. People have you asking in retrospective, and I see some of them. One was, have you had any contact with the council in the last 12 months? And there was a very high percentage hadn't. So how are they going to comment sensibly? Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Dakey, and then I'll be looking for a mover and a seconder.
I'm happy to move.
All right, I've got a mover. Councillor Dakey, you had a question?
Yeah, it's just around with that cycling. I mean, there's 400 respondents. What percentage of people who respond to a cycling question are cyclists? That's the first question.
Well, it was 23% who said don't know to that question, which would indicate to us they weren't cycling. But it's something we could look at in the future, having another question asking that, so we can filter and analyse the data that way.
Because my worry would be if you ask someone and they're not a cyclist, you may just end up with a vote on how much they dislike cycle lanes. So I guess you might have access to that, but it doesn't come through to us. So we're left on a couple of the questions a bit like that, where some of the issues are, and it's broken down maybe further in the data, but somebody says the footpath there's too many footpaths, and someone says there's not enough footpaths, and then there's just dissatisfaction with footpaths. So just how we get those questions to reflect what we're actually trying to find out. Some of them I think might need a little bit of tweaking going forward. We don't want to skew results, but we want to actually find out what we want to find out. Thanks.
Sorry, through the chair. Obviously, so this is my first time looking at the survey. I didn't even realise that local councils did a survey. And it's been really interesting looking at the questions. There's a lot of insight that you can get from them, but there are ones where we would like to change the questions up following next year. So we are going to tender next year for potentially a new company. And that way we can kind of, without ruining the trends that we've already made, we can just get a little bit more insight from those questions and using the verbatim responses a bit more. Like there's curbside recycling, which is another measure that we haven't met. And I think 17% of the people who have provided the service, there was a few of them that said they weren't provided the service. So we've identified that the question that we're asking is wrong, because we're asking them, is there curbside recycling in your area? Whereas if they're in Wakefield, they go, yeah, there's recycling bins in Wakefield, I've seen that. Whereas we really want to know, has the council provided you a curbside recycling bin? Yes. Okay, do you use it? Yeah.
Through the chair, if I can just add as well, we'll also be reviewing the methodology, whether we keep doing it by phone or whether we do another approach. And in terms of the response rate, the numbers called versus those who did the survey. So some would have declined to do the survey, but some also wouldn't have met the quotas. So that you might have rung a house and there wasn't a person of that age, or yeah.
Councillor Hill, you put your hand up.
I was thinking about, customer satisfaction of people just leaving the building. In garages, they have those things where you get a coin and you pop it in the little what's it about where you want the funds to go. But it's, what I hear from people generally is that they find the level of competence of staff and the help they get very, very good. That's what I hear over and over. And so when you're asking questions about how satisfied, they might be satisfied with the decision. They might be dissatisfied. They might be dissatisfied with the policy or the rule, or bloody hell, I can't build that there. So, it's complicated, and I guess identifying what you actually want to know is a very specific thing.
Are you happy to second the report?
Yes.
All right, so I've got moved Deputy Mayor Bryant, seconded Councillor Hill. I'm going to put this report. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against. Now, we've got one other report to do. Rather than taking a break, why don't we just keep going straight through, and then you'll finish a little bit earlier. So we've got to move into confidential. So Matt, end of the day for you and the team on Zoom. I'm sure Councillor Hill can do it. Oh no, here you are.
Kia hora te Marino, kia whakapapa Punamu, te moana, aroha atu aroha. Mai, tēnā tātou, tēnā tātou, tēnā tātou katoa. Let calm go forth, the sea shines like the greenstone, goodwill has been exchanged, acknowledgements to you, me and everyone here.